The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Commander Jack Mason stared at the glowing blue hologram hovering above his desk with disbelief. After 200 years of isolation, the Galactic Council had finally reached out to Earth. "Play it again," he said to his office eye. The message replayed. A tall, six-armed alien with skin like polished emeralds spoke in a carefully measured tone. "To the leaders of Earth, the Galactic Council extends an invitation for humanity to join as an observer species. 2 representatives are requested to attend the next council gathering on Centaurus Station in 14 Earth days. As is tradition, please bring 1 cultural artifact showcasing your species' engineering capabilities. Coordinates follow." Jack ran his hand through his short gray hair and let out a long breath. Since the brutal Nexus War 2 centuries ago, humanity had kept to itself, rebuilding and recovering. Many believed the various alien civilizations had abandoned humans to die during that conflict. Yet here was an invitation to join the most powerful political body in the known galaxy. His comm unit buzzed. "Commander Mason, please report to the Admiral's office immediately." 20 minutes later, Jack sat across from Admiral Peters in her spacious office overlooking the rebuilt skyline of New Washington. "You've seen the message?" the Admiral asked. "Yes, Mom." "Good. You're going to Centaurus Station." She slid a data tablet across the desk. "Earth's government has decided to accept the invitation." Jack scrolled through the mission details. "Observer status. That's the lowest tier of membership. The Council has 12 full member species, all of them thousands of years more advanced than us," the Admiral said. "They see us as newcomers, primitives. This is actually generous of them. And they expect us to bring some kind of engineering sample. It's a tradition. New species present a cultural artifact that showcases their technological capabilities." She folded her hands. "The President wants to send our newest battleship, the Horizon." Jack frowned. "The Horizon is our most advanced military vessel. Do we really want to reveal that technology?" "The decision isn't yours, Commander." The Admiral's voice was firm. "But I value your opinion. That's why you're going." "Who's the second representative?" The Admiral tapped her screen. "Lieutenant Susan Hart, engineering specialist. She has an unusual interest in historical military vessels. Her knowledge might be useful when comparing our technology to theirs." Later that day, Jack met Lieutenant Hart in the mission preparation room. She was younger than he expected, with intelligent eyes and a confident handshake. "Commander Mason," she said, "it's an honor to join you on this mission." "The honor is mine, Lieutenant. Have you been briefed?" "Yes, sir. We're to present the Horizon as our engineering artifact." She hesitated. "If I may speak freely, sir." "Go ahead." "I think that's a mistake. The Council already sees us as a primitive species. Showing them our best technology will only confirm how far behind we are." Jack studied her. "What would you suggest instead?" Susan's eyes lit up. "Something unexpected. Something with history. Something that tells a story about who we are." She pulled up a hologram showing an enormous, battle-scarred warship, the U.S. Defiant. The ghost ship. Jack was surprised. "It's been decommissioned for over 150 years. "Yes, sir, but it survived the worst battles of the Nexus War when ships twice as advanced were destroyed. It has character." Jack stared at the hologram. The Defiant was a legend, a relic from humanity's darkest hour. "The Council is expecting us to try to impress them," Susan continued. "But what if we honored our past instead? The ship that helped save our species." Jack felt something stir within him. His own grandfather had served in the final years of the Nexus War. "It would need significant work to even be space-worthy," he said. Susan smiled. "I already have a restoration team standing by, just waiting for your approval." Jack looked once more at the battle-scarred hull of the ancient warship. He made his decision. "Get it ready, Lieutenant. We're taking the Defiant to the stars again." The old spaceport had not seen activity in decades. Located far from Earth's busy shipping lanes, the massive facility housed decommissioned vessels from wars long past. Jack and Susan stepped off their shuttle and looked up at the enormous structure before them. The air smelled of metal and dust. "This way, Commander," Susan said, leading Jack through a series of heavy security doors. They keep her in the special preservation dock. The final door slid open to reveal an immense hangar bay. Floating in a gravity cradle was the U.S. Defiant. Jack stopped and stared. He had seen pictures, but nothing prepared him for the real thing. The Defiant was massive, at least a mile long. Its hull was scarred with hundreds of impact marks and repair patches. The dark metal showed signs of extreme heat damage in some sections. Despite this, the ship had a proud, defiant look to it. This was a vessel that had gone through hell and survived. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Susan whispered. A gruff voice answered from behind them. "I wouldn't call her beautiful, but she's a fighter." They turned to see an older man in a maintenance uniform. His name patch read Bill Harris. "You must be the restoration chief," Jack said, extending his hand. Bill nodded as they shook hands. "Been maintaining the old girl for 30 years. Never thought I'd see her fly again." Susan walked toward the ship, eyes wide with excitement. "What's her current status?" "Life support works. Engines can run at about 60%. Navigation and basic systems are functional." Bill scratched his beard. "Weapons systems were deactivated long ago, as required by the peace treaty. The AI core is in dormant mode." Jack circled the viewing platform. "How soon can she be spaceworthy?" "My team has been working around the clock since we got your orders 3 days ago. She'll fly, Commander. Not pretty, but she'll fly." Over the next 5 days, Jack watched as hundreds of engineers and technicians swarmed over the Defiant. Susan was always in the middle of the activity, covered in grease and smiling. On the 6th day, Admiral Peters arrived for inspection. She did not look happy. "Commander Mason, a word," she said, pulling Jack aside. "The President is concerned about your choice, taking a museum piece to represent Earth. The Defiant is outdated technology. With respect, Admiral, the Council already thinks we're primitive. The horizon won't impress them. But the Defiant tells our story. It shows we survived against impossible odds." The Admiral looked up at the battle-scarred hull. "It's also not giving away our current capabilities." "That too," Jack admitted. The Admiral sighed. "Very well. But no weapons systems are to be reactivated. The Defiant goes as a display piece only. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear, Mom." After the Admiral left, Susan approached Jack with a datapad. "Sir, I've been studying the ship's original specifications. There's something strange about the engine configuration." "Strange how?" "It's overbuilt, like it was designed to handle much more power than listed in the official specs." She tapped the screen. "And the hull has these unusual conductive pathways throughout. They don't connect to any known systems." Jack frowned. The Defiant was built during the worst part of the war. A lot of experimental technology was being tested then. "I know, but..." She hesitated. "Some of these design elements don't make sense unless the ship had capabilities beyond what's in the historical record." Bill joined them, wiping his hands on a rag. "The Defiant always had her secrets. That's why they called her the ghost ship. She'd disappear from sensors, then show up where no one expected her. Saved a lot of lives that way." Susan looked up at the massive vessel. "I'd like to access the captain's quarters. According to the records, they were sealed after the war and never reopened." Jack considered this. "Do what you need to do, Lieutenant. But remember the Admiral's orders. No weapons are to be reactivated." "Understood, sir." 3 days later, the Defiant's engines rumbled to life for the first time in over a century. The sound echoed through the hangar like a sleeping giant taking its first breath. Bill stood beside Jack as they watched the ship's lights slowly illuminate. "Never thought I'd see this day," the old technician said, his voice thick with emotion. "Will she make it to Centaurus Station?" Jack asked. Bill chuckled. Commander, this ship survived the Battle of Proxima Centauri when nothing should have. She'll get you where you need to go. Jack nodded. Then let's introduce the Galactic Council to a proper human relic. The journey to Centaurus Station took 8 days. The Defiant moved slowly through space, pulled by a modern diplomatic vessel. Susan spent most of her time on the old warship, checking systems and making repairs. Jack divided his time between studying council protocols and helping Susan. Coming out of light speed in 5 minutes, the pilot's voice announced over the comm, "Centaurus Station will be visible shortly." Jack joined Susan on the Defiant's observation deck. They watched as the stars shifted from streaks back to distant points of light. "There it is," Susan said, pointing ahead. Centaurus Station appeared first as a small bright dot. As they drew closer, its true size became clear. The station was enormous, shaped like a giant wheel, with 12 spokes extending from a central hub. Each spoke represented one of the council member species. "It's at least 50 times bigger than our largest space station," Jack said quietly. Susan nodded. "Makes the Defiant look small by comparison." Their diplomatic vessel received docking instructions as they approached. The Defiant would be parked in a display area where all cultural artifacts from various species were kept. As they docked, a welcome committee waited for them. 6 different alien species stood in a neat row, wearing formal attire with council insignias. Jack and Susan stepped off their ship and approached the group. One alien stepped forward. It had blue skin and 4 arms. Its face had no nose, just breathing slits and large golden eyes. "Welcome to Centaurus Station. I am Coordinator Zilks of the Welcoming Committee," it said in perfect English. "We are pleased humanity has accepted our invitation after such a long isolation." Jack bowed slightly. "Thank you for having us. I am Commander Jack Mason, and this is Lieutenant Susan Hart." Zilks's eyes moved past them to the Defiant. "And this is your cultural artifact." "Yes," Jack said proudly. "The U.S. Defiant, a warship from the Nexus War." A tall, reptilian alien snorted. It had red scales and black eyes. "You brought a relic. How quaint." Zilks shot the reptilian a warning look. "Ambassador Krell of the Vordax speaks out of turn. Please forgive him." Jack kept his face neutral. No offense taken. Krell stepped closer, examining the Defiant with obvious disdain. "This vessel is museum scrap. Our scanners show primitive weapon mounts, outdated propulsion, and minimal shielding." Another alien, thin with silvery skin, joined Krell. The Zeth agree with the Vordax assessment. This technology is at least 2 centuries behind current standards. Susan stepped forward. "The Defiant may be old, but it survived battles that destroyed ships twice as advanced. There's more to it than meets the eye." The silver alien's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. "How charming. The humans believe in ghost stories about their old warships." Jack felt his temper rising, but kept his voice calm. "The Defiant represents an important chapter in human history. We brought it to honor those who fought for our survival, not to impress you with our technology." Zilks intervened smoothly. "A noble sentiment. Now, shall we proceed to your quarters? The formal council session begins tomorrow." As they followed Zilks, Jack noticed several aliens with scanning devices moving toward the Defiant. "Excuse me," he said to Zilks. "What are they doing to our ship?" "Standard security protocol," Zilks explained. "All artifacts are scanned before being placed in the display area." Susan frowned. "Those look like military-grade scanners, not security devices." Zilks's breathing slits fluttered. "I assure you, it's standard procedure." Later, in their private quarters, Susan brought up her datapad. "Sir, I've been monitoring the Defiant remotely. Those weren't standard security scans. At least 3 different species are doing deep analysis of our ship's systems." "That violates diplomatic protocols," Jack said. "Yes, sir. And they're focusing on those unusual pathways I mentioned earlier." Susan looked worried. They're more interested in the Defiant than they're letting on. Jack looked out the window at the massive station. So much for their dismissive attitude. Keep monitoring the situation, Lieutenant. Tomorrow we meet the full council. There's something else, Susan said. While they were scanning, I detected unusual energy readings from the sealed captain's quarters. It's almost like something inside is responding to their scans. Jack turned to her with concern. Could it be a defense system? I don't know, Susan admitted, but whatever it is, it's starting to wake up. Susan couldn't sleep. The strange energy readings from the Defiant kept her mind racing. At 3 in the morning, station time, she gave up trying to rest and headed to the docking bay where the old warship waited. The display area was quiet at this hour. Most of the other artifacts were smaller than the Defiant. Elegant ships, strange machines, and beautiful structures that showcase each species' engineering skills. The battle-scarred human warship looked out of place among them, like a wolf among peacocks. Susan used her access card to enter the Defiant. The ship felt different now, almost alive. The low hum of the basic systems she had reactivated echoed through the empty corridors. She made her way to the sealed captain's quarters on the command deck. The door was marked with old warning signs, authorized personnel only, and top secret, Nexus War Command. Susan ran her hand over the aged metal. During the restoration, they had respected the historical seals, focusing only on making the ship space-worthy. Now she needed to know what was inside. She connected her data pad to the door's control panel and ran a bypass program. After several minutes, the ancient locks disengaged with a heavy clunk. The door slid open an inch, then stopped. Susan put her shoulder against it and pushed. With a groan of metal, it opened enough for her to slip through. The air inside was stale but breathable. Susan activated her light and looked around in amazement. The captain's quarters were nothing like she expected. Instead of living space, the room was filled with advanced equipment. Most of it was unlike anything she had seen before. In the center stood what looked like a command console. It was dark now, but Susan could see it was built with technology far beyond what should have existed during the Nexus War. "What were you really?" she whispered to the ship. She approached the console cautiously. As she drew near, a soft blue light began to glow from its surface. Words appeared on a screen. Emergency Protocol System. Authorized personnel only. Susan hesitated, then placed her hand on the console. The blue light scanned her palm. DNA partial match detected. Mason family lineage confirmed. Limited access granted. Susan gasped. Mason family. Could the ship somehow recognize her commander's bloodline? A holographic message appeared in the air above the console. A tired-looking man in an old Earth uniform stared out at her. His name badge read Captain Alan Mason. If you're viewing this message, Earth faces another existential threat, the hologram said. The Defiant is not what history records. She was built as a technological testbed, disguised as a conventional warship. Most of her true capabilities were classified beyond top secret, known only to her command crew. Susan listened in shock as Captain Mason explained that the Defiant had been equipped with experimental systems developed in secret during the darkest days of the Nexus War. The ship contains adaptive shield technology, energy redirection systems, and weapons platforms decades ahead of anything else we built. After the war, we were ordered to decommission these systems, but I couldn't bring myself to destroy what might someday save humanity again. Instead, we placed them in dormant mode and sealed this room. The hologram looked grim. If you've activated this message, use the Defiant's true capabilities wisely. She was built to protect humanity, not to conquer. Emergency activation codes are stored in this console. Good luck, and may God help us all. The message ended. Susan stood frozen in place. The Defiant wasn't just an old warship, it was a secret weapon, hidden in plain sight for over a century. Her data pad beeped with an incoming message from Jack. Council meeting starts in 4 hours. Where are you? Susan took a deep breath and began downloading the ship's true specifications from the console. "You won't believe what I found, sir," she whispered as she worked. Outside the Defiant, unknown to Susan, a Vordax technician was completing his own scan of the ship. He noticed the power spike from the sealed room and frowned. Something had just activated aboard the human relic. Something powerful. Jack stood tall as he entered the great council chamber. The room was massive, with a circular table at its center. 12 seats for full members surrounded it, with smaller seats behind for observer species. Hundreds of representatives filled the chamber's tiered seating. Susan sat beside Jack, looking tired but excited. She had tried to tell him about her discovery, but there hadn't been enough time before the meeting. "We need to talk about the Defiant as soon as possible," was all she had managed to say. Coordinator Zilks guided them to their observer seats. "Remember, you may speak only when directly addressed by a council member." The session began with formal introductions. Each council species presented itself with grand titles and achievements. When it was Earth's turn, Jack stood. Commander Jack Mason of Earth, representing humanity. "We thank the council for this opportunity." Ambassador Krell of the Vordax leaned forward. "Tell us, Commander, why did humanity isolate itself for 2 centuries after the Nexus War?" Jack chose his words carefully. "We needed time to rebuild. The war nearly destroyed our civilization." A member of the Zeth spoke next. "Yet now you seek to join galactic society. Why?" "To learn, to trade, to find our place among the stars." The questions continued, mostly polite but with undertones of suspicion. Jack noticed that several council members exchanged private messages during the session. They seemed concerned about something. During a brief recess, Susan pulled Jack aside. "Sir, the Defiant isn't what we thought. It's—" Before she could finish, a deafening alarm blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed. Council members looked around in confusion. The main view screen activated, showing space outside the station. Dozens of black ships with sharp, angular designs appeared from nowhere. They fired purple energy beams at the station's outer rings. "The station is under attack," Zilk shouted over the noise. "All representatives to emergency shelters." The chamber erupted in panic. Council members rushed toward the exits while security officers tried to maintain order. Ambassador Krell stormed over to Jack and Susan. "Did you bring them here? Is this a human trick?" "We know nothing about this," Jack said firmly. "Who are they?" A deep boom shook the station. The lights flickered. The highest-ranking council member, a tall being with crystalline features, approached them. "They are the Void Collective. We thought they were just a myth, stories to frighten children." "They're very real," Zilk said, checking the data screen. "Our defense fleet is engaging." But the coordinator's voice trailed off. On the view screen, council ships exploded one after another. The black enemy vessels took damage but kept fighting with relentless precision. "Outer ring shields at 30%. Someone shouted. "Inner ring at 60%. Susan grabbed Jack's arm. "Sir, the Defiant. It might be our only chance." "What are you talking about?" Jack asked. Susan quickly explained what she had found in the sealed captain's quarters. "The ship has advanced weapons and shield technology that might help." Jack looked at the view screen. More council ships were being destroyed. The station shuddered as another section was hit. "Civilian casualties reported in sectors 7 through 12. A voice announced over the speakers. "All non-essential personnel evacuate immediately." The crystalline council leader looked defeated. "We have no contingency for this. The Void Collective was only a legend until today." Jack made his decision. "Lieutenant Hart, and I need to return to our ship." "Your relic?" Krell scoffed. "What good will that do?" "Maybe none," Jack admitted, "but we have to try." As they ran toward the docking bay, the station rocked with another impact. Part of the ceiling collapsed behind them, blocking the corridor. "Commander," Susan said as they ran, "there's something else you should know." The captain who left the message in the sealed quarters, his name was Alan Mason. Jack almost stopped running. My great-grandfather. Susan nodded. The ship's systems recognized your DNA. You may be the only one who can fully activate the Defiant's hidden systems. They reached the docking bay and saw the Defiant waiting silently amid the chaos. Emergency crews rushed past them, evacuating civilians from nearby sections. Jack looked at the old warship with new understanding. Time to wake up the ghost, he said quietly. Jack and Susan raced into the Defiant, pushing past the emergency crews that filled the docking bay. The old ship felt cold and silent compared to the chaos outside. We need to get to the bridge, Jack said, leading the way through the dim corridors. Susan shook her head. The captain's quarters first. That's where the emergency protocol system is. They reached the partially open door to the sealed room. Inside, the console still glowed with soft blue light. Susan quickly showed Jack what she had discovered. Place your hand here, she said, pointing to the scanner. Jack hesitated for just a moment, then pressed his palm against the cool surface. The blue light scanned his hand. DNA match confirmed. Mason, Jack. Direct descendant of Captain Alan Mason. Full access granted. The console came fully to life, screens lighting up around them. A new holographic message appeared, but this time it seemed to recognize Jack. Activation protocol authorized. The hologram of Captain Alan Mason said, Defiant systems unlocking. Voice confirmation required. Jack straightened his shoulders. This is Commander Jack Mason. Activate the Defiant. The ship hummed around them. Lights flickered on throughout the vessel. The deck vibrated slightly beneath their feet. Voice pattern accepted. Warning. Full activation will reveal classified technology. Proceed? Yes, Jack said firmly. Proceed with full activation. Susan's datapad beeped with alerts as systems throughout the ship began powering up. The engines are at full capacity. Weapon systems coming online. But there's something else. An AI core is activating. A new voice, female and calm, spoke from the room's speakers. Defiant I Valerie online. Emergency protocol detected. Awaiting orders. Jack looked at Susan in surprise. The ship has an AI. That technology wasn't supposed to exist during the Nexus War. A lot of things on this ship weren't supposed to exist, Susan replied. The ship shuddered as something hit the station nearby. The emergency lights in the room flashed red. Valerie, Jack said, feeling strange talking to the ship. Situation report. Centaurus station under attack by unknown hostile force. Station shields failing. Estimate 16 minutes to complete shield failure. Civilian casualties currently at 300 and rising. Susan moved to a different console that was now active. The ship's transforming somehow. Look at these readings. On the external cameras, they could see parts of the Defiant's hull sliding apart, revealing weapon ports and sensor arrays that had been hidden beneath the surface. Classified defense systems activating, Valerie announced. Adaptive shield generators online. Point defense network online. Advanced weapons platforms deploying. Jack watched in amazement as the old warship literally transformed before his eyes. What had appeared to be battle damage and repair patches were actually cleverly disguised access points for advanced systems. This ship is decades ahead of even our current military technology, Susan whispered. The door to the captain's quarters suddenly slid fully open. Ambassador Krell stood there with two other aliens, their faces showing shock at what they were seeing. What is happening to your ship? Krell demanded. Another explosion rocked the station. The alien ambassador stumbled forward into the room. We're preparing to help defend the station, Jack said. Unless you prefer we sit back and watch. Krell's expression changed from suspicion to desperate hope. Can this Relic actually fight the Void Collective? We're about to find out, Jack replied. He turned to Susan. Lieutenant, can you handle the engineering systems? Susan nodded. With Valerie's help, yes. Good. Ambassador, you should return to safety. We're moving the Defiant into combat position. Krell hesitated, then nodded. May your ancestors guide your aim, human. The ambassador hurried away. Jack turned back to Valerie. Can you get us to the bridge? Affirmative, Commander. All systems are now at combat readiness. As they hurried through the corridors, the ship continued to transform around them. Panels opened in the walls revealing new control systems. The lights changed from emergency red to a calm blue. They reached the bridge, which now glowed with holographic displays and control panels that certainly weren't there during the restoration. Docking clamps released, Valerie announced. The Defiant is free to maneuver. Jack took the captain's chair, feeling the weight of history as he sat where his great-grandfather once commanded. Susan took the engineering station. Move us between the station and the attacking fleet, Jack ordered. It's time to show the Galactic Council what a human relic can do. The Defiant moved smoothly away from the docking bay. Through the view screen, Jack could see the battle raging around Centaurus Station. The black ships of the Void Collective fired constantly at the station's weakening shields. Most of the Council defense fleet was already destroyed. Valerie, give me a tactical analysis, Jack ordered. The AI's calm voice responded immediately. Hostile force consists of 47 vessels of unknown design. Their weapons are energy-based with unusual quantum signatures. Station shields at 22% and falling. Remaining Council ships are outmatched in both firepower and defenses. Susan looked up from her engineering console. Defiant systems are fully operational. The adaptive shields are unlike anything I've ever seen. Jack nodded. Take us in, Valerie. Position between the station and the main attack group. The old warship accelerated with surprising speed, its engines glowing with blue-white fire. On the bridge screens, Jack could see Council members watching from the station as the human relic moved into the fight. We are being scanned by both Council forces and hostile vessels, Valerie reported. The Defiant glided into position, placing its bulk between the station and the largest group of enemy ships. For a moment, the black vessels seemed to pause their attack as if confused by this new arrival. They're probably wondering what we think we're doing, Susan said with a grim smile. The moment of confusion didn't last long. 5 enemy ships broke formation and headed straight for the Defiant, weapons charging. Multiple weapons locks detected, Valerie announced. Enemy vessels targeting our position. Jack gripped the arms of the command chair. Defensive measures, Valerie. Show them what a human relic can do. The enemy ships fired simultaneously. Purple energy beams streaked toward the Defiant. Jack held his breath. The beams hit the Defiant's shields, and something amazing happened. Instead of the shields glowing or straining under the impact, they seemed to absorb the energy, rippling like water. The ship shuddered slightly, but held firm. Shield integrity at 96%, Valerie reported. Adaptive systems analyzing enemy weapons signature, adjusting shield harmonics. Susan stared at her readings. The shields aren't just blocking their attacks. They're learning from them. Each hit makes them stronger against that specific weapon type. The enemy ships fired again. This time, the Defiant's shields barely rippled. Shield integrity now at 98%, Valerie said. Enemy weapon effectiveness reduced by 60%. On the station, the Council members watched in disbelief. The screens on the bridge showed their shocked faces as the primitive human warship withstood attacks that had destroyed their advanced vessels. We've got their attention now, Jack said. Valerie, what offensive capabilities do we have? The Defiant is equipped with phase cannons, quantum torpedoes, and energy redirection systems. The latter can return absorbed energy to targets with increased focus. Jack raised an eyebrow at Susan. Energy redirection. She shrugged. Like I said, technology we don't even have now. Incoming transmission from the station, Valerie announced. The main screen showed Admiral Krell's face, a mixture of shock and hope in his eyes. Human vessel, we are witnessing your defensive capabilities. Can you actually fight these demons? Jack nodded firmly. We can do more than defend, Admiral. Recommend you move your remaining ships behind us. We're about to counterattack. Jack turned off the communication and addressed Valerie. Target the 5 nearest enemy vessels. Use the energy redirection system. Targets locked. Valerie confirmed. Redirected energy ready. Fire. The Defiant's hull glowed with purple light, the same energy the enemy had used against them. Then 5 precise beams shot out, each striking one of the attacking ships. The beams cut through their black hulls like they were made of paper. All 5 enemy vessels exploded simultaneously. A cheer went up from the station. The remaining council ships quickly moved to position themselves behind the Defiant. The rest of the enemy fleet seemed to hesitate. Then, as one, they changed course, all heading directly for the Defiant. They've identified us as the primary threat, Valerie said. All enemy vessels now targeting this ship. Susan looked concerned. That's a lot of firepower heading our way. Jack leaned forward in his chair. Valerie, prepare all weapon systems. Susan, route power to wherever it's needed most. He took a deep breath. Let's show the galaxy what humanity can do when pushed too far. The Defiant's weapons ports glowed with building energy as the enemy fleet approached. The real battle was about to begin. 2 days after the battle, Jack and Susan stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber. The mood was very different now. Where there had been dismissive looks and whispers before, now there was silence and respect. The Defiant had fought for 6 hours straight. Its adaptive shields and advanced weapons had turned the tide of battle. When the last enemy ship retreated, the old warship had taken damage but remained functional. 23 Void Collective vessels had been destroyed. The rest had fled back to wherever they came from. The Crystalline Council leader stood before them. Commander Mason, Lieutenant Hart, the Council has called this special session to formally thank humanity for saving Centaurus Station and countless lives. Jack nodded respectfully. We were glad to help. Admiral Krell stepped forward. His attitude had completely changed. I wish to personally apologize for my dismissive words about your ship. The Defiant proved to be the most formidable vessel I have ever witnessed. Thank you, Admiral, Jack said. Susan noticed the careful looks being exchanged between council members. They were curious, but also cautious now. The Zeth representative spoke next. We must ask, Commander, how did your species develop such technology during the Nexus War? Our historical records show humans were far less advanced. The Defiant was a secret project, Jack explained. A testbed for experimental systems developed when our survival was at stake. After the war, most of these technologies were classified and sealed away. And yet you brought this vessel here, knowing its true capabilities, asked another council member. Susan stepped forward. We didn't know until I discovered the sealed captain's quarters during our journey. The ship's true nature was hidden even from most of our own people. The council members whispered among themselves. Jack could see they didn't fully believe this explanation, but they couldn't disprove it either. The Crystalline leader raised a hand for silence. What matters is that when crisis came, humanity stood with us rather than using the chaos to its advantage. This speaks well of your character as a species. The leader lifted the ceremonial staff. It is the unanimous decision of this council to grant humanity full membership status, effective immediately. Your representatives will have a voice and vote in all council matters. Applause filled the chamber. Jack felt a swell of pride. In just a few days, humanity had gone from isolated observer to respected member of the galactic community. As the formal ceremony concluded, Admiral Krell approached them privately. The Void Collective will return, he said quietly. They have never attacked once without coming back stronger. We would be grateful if the Defiant remained at Centaurus Station for the time being. Jack nodded. I'll need to consult with Earth's government, but I believe that can be arranged. Later, as they walked back to the Defiant for a final systems check, Susan looked thoughtful. What's on your mind, Lieutenant? Jack asked. Something Valerie told me during the battle, she said. The AI said we only used about 30% of the Defiant's true capabilities. There are systems even more advanced that didn't need to be activated. Jack stopped walking and turned to her. Do you think we should tell the council that? Susan smiled slightly. With all due respect, sir, I think some things should remain humanity's secret, just in case. Jack considered this, then nodded. I agree. Earth has been isolated for 2 centuries. We're stepping onto a much larger stage now, with species far older and more established than us. Having a few surprises in reserve might be wise. They continued walking toward the Defiant. The old warship sat proudly in its docking bay, its battle damage being repaired by station crews, who now treated the vessel with almost reverent care. You know, Jack said as they approached, my great-grandfather would be proud to see his ship saving lives again. Susan nodded. The council won't be laughing at human relics anymore. Jack smiled as they boarded the ship. No, Lieutenant, I don't believe they will. Inside the Defiant, Valerie's systems hummed quietly, monitoring the station and space beyond. The AI had already detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system, signatures that matched the Void Collective ships. They would return, just as Admiral Krell predicted. But next time, the Defiant would be waiting. And next time, they would see what a human relic could really do.